Folks, thanks for joining us today. My name is John Dubas with Premier Marketing. We'll be spending the next hour or so discussing the possibilities and challenges we have in selling in a real and virtual world. We'll touch upon some of the electronic tools that are available to you, but give a great deal of information on some of the basic social media programs that are out there available to us to use as a source of marketing and contact with the public. Today's presentation is being recorded, and it will be made available on our website at premiersmi.com in the video library, also on our YouTube channel, and all of the agent marketers will have them as well. Please watch for that information as it comes available later today. There is a section in the software package for questions and one for chat. We ask that you put your questions in the question section. We find that we answer most of them through the course of the presentation, but with today's topic being fairly varied, we'll make certain that if we don't have an answer for you by the end of the presentation, we get one to you in as timely a fashion as earthly possible. So let's get started with a bit of a level set as to who Premier Marketing is. Many of you are very aware of us. You may not be aware of the breadth of our portfolio, and there's some people on the call that are probably new to us. So Premier Marketing is a national marketing organization founded in 1968 that's part of the Integrity Marketing Platform. We have offices across the country. We're licensed in all 50 states. We act as an insurance wholesaler, working through independent insurance agents such as yourself, offering contracts at the highest possible commission levels, including recruiting contracts available to those who qualify. That portfolio is a broad portfolio that encompasses the basic Medicare programs, the Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, and prescription drug programs, but also life insurance and annuity products, final expense life insurance and pre-need plans, long and short-term care programs and disability income plans, and ancillary benefits, including dental, vision, hearing, critical illness, cancer, hospital indemnity, accident, and telehealth program. We feel that this portfolio works very well with electronic means of prospecting and selling. And I think you'll find that in each of these sections, our systems and those of the carriers with whom we contract deliver upon a means to reach the public in whatever fashion is necessary to consummate the relationship. The Medicare Advantage programs include the national carriers and many of the strong regionals for you in your market. You'll notice a couple of new entries into this area, and that same philosophy carries over into the prescription drug programs where the national carriers are there for you, most of them through the same contract that you have for your Medicare Advantage plan, but there are a couple of notable exceptions. The Mutual of Omaha program is just for their PDP program, so it's a separate contract than any other offering that they have, and CleverRx is actually a discount program, not a sanctioned Part D prescription drug plan. In the Medicare Supplement arena, you have a variety of programs that are available to you. This is an area where we're particularly enthusiastic about the electronic support that is available and how these carriers also support your social media campaigns. When we look at the ancillary products, in each of the categories, you have the national leaders there for you. And you find that these not only satisfy the needs of your prospects and clients and deliver upon additional revenue for you and your agencies, but many of these folks are some of the carriers that are very adept at offering social media assistance. So that's something that becomes a factor not only in how we do our job, but also as how we approach it and who we choose as partners with the multitude of programs that are out there for us in our selection process. The Medicare market, of course, most folks are aware of the fact that it's a huge burgeoning market, a great way to approach folks in real life and virtually. The 60 million plus people that are on Medicare include the majority of them based on age, over age of 65. However, some of those folks are not accessing their full benefits. This gives us another opportunity to reach out electronically to these people and make certain whatever shortfall they have in their benefit package is taken care of. And it also gives us the opportunity to reach that other 17+% of the Medicare population that is under the age of 65 and accessing Medicare benefits because of disability. It's important to note that while this lays out detail on the Medicare market, many of the programs that are out there obviously appeal to the under 65 market and are part of an overall marketing program for many agents who choose to work with that segment of the insurance world. We go through a number of these things because the people that we talk with have choices. They don't have to do anything. They can decline Part B should they choose to do so. Thankfully, they don't. Some of them will self-insure for what Medicare doesn't cover when it comes to the medical expenses. Some will pick up that standardized Part D program, which electronic means are a great way of not only evaluating those programs, but also offering choices and selling those plans. And the same concept goes with folks who access additional coverage for the medical shortfall within Medicare through a standardized, modernized Medicare supplement, where many of these carriers are also very aggressive in the ways that they offer support for marketing in the area that we're working with, and also through the selling of those programs through electronic applications. Same thing with a philosophy that is part and parcel of the Medicare Advantage Part C programs, where comparison tools and electronic means of enrollment are very, very important to us in how we conduct our business. It's important to note, of course, too, that across all of these options, we have ways of delivering information that best suits the needs of our prospects and clients, and is done so in a very efficient yet compliant manner. We're seeing that because of some of the things that the world has experienced over the last 2 or 3 years. Some folks are looking at their choices a bit differently, and electronic support makes a big difference and influences some of their choices when it comes to their healthcare. So that's something to consider. Having a full portfolio of products and make a difference to make certain that whatever the individual's choice is, we're able to accommodate that choice. We also want to make certain that we translate the information that's going out. And so electronic means include an acronym guide from cms.gov that helps us make certain that people understand what we're talking about and reminds us to minimize our use of acronyms in our sales process to make certain that the communication that goes out and is received is mutually understood. The electronic process does affect some of the election periods in the fact that it gives us more time into addressing the standardized periods, the special election periods, and keeps us aware of some of the changes that are coming about in this area with special election periods, so we stay on top of things. All of this electronic tools and all of the different pieces that we have for reaching out for folks don't make a difference if they don't read it and absorb the information that we are disseminating. And we're seeing that the majority of people, if they're left to their own devices, aren't comparing their plans on an annual basis. Kaiser Family Foundation tells us that, hey, 7 of 10 haven't done it in one of the more recent enrollment periods. And for us, that gives us the opportunity to make certain that vulnerable portions of the population and folks that aren't responding to different means may look at us as a source of information that we're able to deliver through the use of the electronic processes and also through some of the programs that we have available to help them make a choice, plain and simple. Medicare does a pretty good job of laying information out there, but it's not widely used. Part of it may be because some folks don't have access. Some folks aren't comfortable with the process. Some folks just don't do it, plain and simple. Are coming at the population, arousing the interest through electronic means, and making certain that they use the tools can be a big difference to us. Because you can tell by this piece that's been on the internet for quite some time, 60+ million people on Medicare, and less than 1 million have viewed it in an extended time period. So we're seeing that they may not use the information may not use some of the new technology the government's putting out there to help them be aware of it, and may not even be aware of the annual guide that they get in the mail, don't pay attention to it, or they may be receiving it electronically. And that is a great way for us to follow up and work with them on that basis. So let's look at some of the changes we have in the new normal. We work in different circumstances, and for some folks, it's difficult to wander off the chosen path or the normal path that we proceed. But sometimes that change is a good thing, can bring about an evolution of our processes. And we're seeing a number of agents who have decided that, hey, I'm going virtual continuously, no matter what happens in the environment. And so that is a indication of folks that instead of dealing with change with a bit of trepidation, they're loving it and they're making it part of their overall processes because it gives them room to grow. And it does give us different opportunities because it enlarges our reach. Our propinquity has expanded. We're able to take our marketing efforts from a single geographic area that may be defined and confined by our ability to reach out to people physically, but it also then gives us the opportunity to change our mindset as to some of the processes, the ways that we've done things in the past to make them more efficient, to give us more time to do our jobs without sacrificing efficiency, compliance, and of course, production. So we want to look at a process that will give us a way of meeting people with the ability to pivot. Because sometimes there may be folks that we visit with in person that the follow up can be done virtually. And the consummation of that sales process can be done virtually. And that can make a big difference as to the time that we are spending with an individual and the time that it takes as an investment of getting there, getting back, and a way of sharing some of the resources and research that we've done on their behalf on the products that we're offering. And many folks are then much more open to this because they've been trained to do so over the last couple, 2, 3 years, are comfortable with that process. Doctors, well, gee, for over a year, the vast majority of visits were done virtually. And that's what we're seeing with many agents handling that same process virtually through Zoom or other means of reaching the population where it's a quasi face-to-face type of meeting, accomplishes much of the same thing. It's not quite the same as sitting across the kitchen table and shaking hands and kissing babies and getting elected, but it's a great way of still personalizing the process where it's not just a voice on a telephone. It's a real person and you can create a connection in that fashion. And we see that that also carries over into today's society with even the work of hospitals that are implementing the admission process, changing some of what is being done with that through the use of video and technology. It's even working with dentists, with teledentistry. Well, that's something that most of us wouldn't think of, but it is a process where dental providers are continuing to see patients through telehealth. And this gives us then the idea of a couple of key areas in which we prospect. So we can use this same sort of technology and philosophy in reaching into this influencer community, these centers of influence in our markets, to help with their staff training and dealing with their client base as well. Their prospect base, in a manner of speaking, is the communities around them, but it gives us then the opportunity to work with their patient base as well electronically because, hey, they've trained some of them to do so. So when we go a prospecting, so to speak, in the new normal, what are we looking at? The big thing, of course, is social media. And it has some very large advantages for us, great advantages inherent in their systems. And some of it may be already being utilized by you in your other efforts because it's not all that difficult to do. I got to tell you, if I can do it, you surely can. And it is inexpensive. You don't write your content, however, you own it. So you have it. It's easy to modify and change down the road, add to, keep in play. There are things that it does for you in the fact that if you're, in essence, a solo practitioner, it levels the playing field. You've got the same opportunity as everyone else, the big carriers out there. Now, the difference may be as to what they're sponsoring as to ad campaigns and some of the different things that are there. But we're going to touch on that in just a little bit too. It's also an area where people are. As this statistic says, 70% of the people in the United States are active Facebook users. And the market that we pursue are Facebook users as well. It does also give us that opportunity to be flexible. Unlike print ads or mailers or other means of reaching into the community, it's not static. So we have the ability to interact and be conversational. We can ask questions, we can run polls, we can start discussions. It can create that communication channel much more quickly than other means that we have of reaching out and touching people. An old yellow page ad there. Look at some of the statistics. It's just mind-boggling, some of the things that are out there with social media. And it's not all that long ago where it's like, who does this? Oh, I'm not on that, whatever it happens to be. The pure numbers are huge. And it gives us an indication of some of the social media tools that we might consider to use in our own active campaigns. When you look at Facebook and it has 1.62 billion users every day, that means a quarter of the world's population is an active Facebook user. So that's a huge difference in some of the things that we have available to us as tools of reaching into the community. And then, of course, YouTube. For folks that are adept at creating videos on YouTube, TikTok's another channel we'll talk about in a bit as well. But that gives us a way to personalize ourselves, get our information out there, and make certain that people know what we're speaking of. Some of the things that we see when we deal with social media, of course, are myths and facts, the differences between them. But some of the common myths, of course, was the audience that we're approaching is not on social media. We've talked about the numbers of people that are accessing it. For our chosen demographics, we've got some big opportunities because senior population, if you're working the Medicare world, well, hey, they're much more active on it than it ever used to be. The under 65 population, of course, speaks for itself. There are some folks that still have the connotation that the use of social media may be unprofessional. Well, it's the old lemmings going off a cliff. Just because others are doing it doesn't necessarily make it the thing to do. But large, respectable organizations have it as a key part of their approach for the public. And so do different leaders within the community as well. So some of them may use it in a fashion we don't particularly care for, but they're using it. And many of them are getting great results out of that as well. It is important to note, though, that even though it's available for our use, fairly simple to do, some of the things that we have available as tools or sales pieces that are given to us by the different carriers, we want to make certain that we are handling that distribution compliantly as well. So many of the same rules that we are subject to in other means of outreach and sales processes are, well, hey, they're rules we got to follow on social media as well. It's also important to note that once you hit click, it's out there. You click send or whatever, however you want to say it, it's out there and it will stay out there, and you can't close the box. Pandora's box has been opened. So we got to be careful about our approach as well. And that includes even comments across the board on different topics. So some of the topics that, or the programs, the platforms that we'll discuss today are some of the major ones. There are a ton of them out there. I don't pretend to be an expert on every one of them. I have a familiarity with a whole bunch of them, as many of you do, but the ones that we'll visit with are the ones that are commonly used to outreach to the public in the insurance world. And that includes Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube. And many folks are very good at the use of TikTok and Instagram. There are other ones that may be out there that will reach the public. But it's important for us to note that whatever platform we use, we're using it with the mindset of it appeals to a particular portion of the population in many cases. And so we want to make certain that we invest our efforts not only in social media, but in the proper or best, finger quotes working there, social media platforms for what we hope to accomplish. And that begins with the old create a plan. You don't necessarily want to be on social media just to be on social media. There needs to be a plan and a purpose. So we need to set up goals. We need to speak to industry changes, be a source of information for the public and our clients. We, of course, want to use it to generate leads for folks that we can discuss the programs that we offer. It is also a great way of increasing website traffic. So for many agents who have their own personal website, or microsites made available through the carriers with whom they contract, it's a great way to drive traffic to those areas, create interest, create the conversations, and in many cases, create a sale without any true interaction between you and the person that has entered into that traffic cycle. It is also a great way for us to keep in mind that we can utilize this to enhance our referral process. A great way of making certain that folks that access our sites know who we are without smacking them in the face, so to speak, but getting them aware of the fact that, hey, this is a great way for me to express my satisfaction with the folks I do business with. And I'm going to send other people there because I know they're going to be taken care of. It's also important to note that as we start these programs and begin our outreach, there are sponsored campaigns by each of these platforms. And so setting up a budget as to what we would like to spend is of paramount importance, because it may be something we start out with just on our own efforts and then go into other directions in order to make certain that we're accommodating what we need to do. But once we set up a plan, we set up our goals, we also need to have a means of tracking and staying on pace with what we're doing in this arena. So having an editorial calendar, and this is part of the planning process, where through the different times of year, there are, as you may note, through some of the campaigns that go out by some of the nonprofits that give us an opportunity to speak to different programs based on, hey, it's Heart Health Month, or like it's Skin Cancer Awareness Month, like this month. That gives us a way of sketching out a calendar on an ongoing basis and setting up in whatever processes we use to trigger our, hey, it's time to do this type of activity. We want to make certain that we incorporate that sort of planning here as well. So as we work into working the plan, as I mentioned, you also have other things that make for very obvious entries as to what we can do and how we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Obviously, there are holidays throughout the year that give us an opportunity to just be personal and express our best wishes in those areas. We may be conducting online seminars, webinars, and publicizing them in this fashion as well. And it's a great way for us to make certain that people realize that we're there to accommodate their needs, give them a way to contact us, and make certain that they're aware of different timetables that are involved, particularly when we look at the enrollment periods we breeze through at the beginning of today's presentation. It is important also to be consistent. There are varying studies that I've seen and read as to how often you should post. And I think with part of it depends upon where you are in the cycle, how you're outreaching to individuals, who your audience is. So if you are on Facebook and you're bopping out these messages to just friends, Well, depends on how many friends you have as to how consistent that can be, what an influence that would be. And it's important to note that this may be a microwave way of getting information out. It may not be a microwave way of getting back some of the flow immediately that we may expect. You can get some really quickly, but so we want to do some things consistently and make use of buzzwords. So you don't have to smack people on the head saying, hey, I'm your insurance agent. Some folks will do that. Some folks will do it periodically. But there are things that you can do as part of your message that will promote that activity, promote that association of what you do and what you don't by using those different keywords, buzzwords that are out there. So if you're approaching the Medicare world, you know, a tagline, you're a Medicare insurance agent, whatever it happens to be, your ACA expert, or there are folks out there that will use the old Obamacare still. And a lot of folks still associate that. I'm not an advocate of that, but hey, that's the way it works. You work in other areas too, dental, demand product, great way of doing some things there. Annuities, life insurance. There are programs out there that have preset campaigns you can utilize that aren't necessarily carrier related. They're more segment of our industry related. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel all of the time. And some of it may be as simple as, you know, the old movie, if you Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Not necessarily. People got to know you're out there. Those statistics we saw earlier about how many people are on these sites and utilizing them, the traffic that is part of it, well, you can get lost in that traffic too. So sometimes it becomes a question of, do you build your systems out, do it all yourself, or do you contract it out? Do you buy the services? And that might be something that can help you. If you are an individual, however, that wants to work on multiple platforms, you have the information. It's a question of how can you maximize your efficiency, minimize the time on there. Well, there's actually a program out there called Hootsuite that will allow you to schedule posts and post at multiple sites at the same time. There's a free version of it that allows you to post up to 3 social profiles at that same time. So you're reaching out to people through different channels within the social world, the great World Wide Web, and you're doing so at 1/3 the effort. It's a question of then, as your design of your message going to appear as you wish it to on the different channels that are out there. They do also have some paid options that can be very helpful to you. You will see too that some folks, if they're working at this, not just to establish a reputation or recognition, whatever it happens to be, they're out there. Hey, I want leads. That's what I want this for. Sometimes we plagiarize Nike and we just buy it. There are programs out there where you can go and buy leads that are harvested off of social media, much as our Facebook campaign for final expense and Medicare programs. And sometimes that cost can be mitigated by the fact that you're saving the time in what you're doing in this area and making certain that we're using our time to the best efficiency. And you can phase in some of the other marketing activity because obviously you don't put all your eggs in one basket anyway. With Facebook, it is important to note that you can have your personal account, but in order to do some of the paid campaigns on Facebook, it's got to be a business account. So many folks in our world will have 2 different Facebook pages, at least for some of them, and you're setting it up then where you have an opportunity to segregate your family and friends, real friends, from the folks that you're looking to do business with. I know a lot of the people from my past are kind of wondering, gee, John, do you ever quit with some of this stuff? My high school classmates and some of that, because I use a singular account. I have a little different purpose for what I do. But also, that same thought may be applied to LinkedIn, where we want to make certain that what's the end game as to what we're looking to accomplish by these different social media engines. One may be more of a prospecting for clients. One might be a recruiting tool for other individuals if we're looking to build a hierarchy or an agency. It's important to note too that the 80/20 rule basically is applied across the world here, where 20% of our clients will make up 80% of our business. And this gives us an indication then of looking at that sampling of those clients and see what those folks have in common. It gives us the opportunity then to create content that would be more likely to appeal to them. And it's important to note that we can look at the products that are being sold as to what segment, what demographic is appealing to them as well. We've got to be really aware of the fact, and that might be a regional type of thing too. And with the things that we do on social media, obviously on the World Wide Web, that message may be going out to different places. So we may need to look at different types of campaigns. Obviously it's going to different places, being absorbed by people in different areas, that if we're looking to appeal to people with one particular product, that may not be the same type of outreach that we're going to do for another program. And make certain that the message is out there and as non-confusing as possible. One good way of doing some of that is to reach out to our current realm of influence within these areas, run polls and find out what they're looking for, what is of interest to them. And it is a area then that can be easily replicated off the different platforms that are out there, and make certain that we're able to use that information then to influence our campaigns moving forward as we drill for oil. There are a number of ways of reaching out to people on a continuing basis thereafter as well. Once people have raised their hands, are we utilizing systems to work them, a client database? How are we doing that? And then how are we using that data to electronically reach out to people? Obviously, there are different programs to help you with email on follow up, those sorts of things. Even if it's just blind copying off of Outlook, you got to be careful about how many you put in one, how often you send out so you don't get blacklisted. But there are companies that you can hire as well to send out some email for you and make certain that that is being followed up in a timely fashion. There are systems too, and many of them that you may be well aware of, that link the entire process together. So it can do some things for you regularly. You can schedule things where it's going to go out if you're pushing a button or not, in a manner of speaking, as long as we have the material set up in the future. So that goes back to that planning that we talked about earlier, and making certain that the message that we're kicking out is planned ahead of time and sculpted ahead of time, and so the things can be accurately and precisely sent. That gives us, however, the opportunity to do this activity on non-peak business hours. Now, folks don't need to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but some of this activity can be handled off hours and easily. And it's a program where you can outsource that too. And it doesn't have to be where I'm hiring someone across the way, a company to do this. That's a viable option. But there may be folks within your own support system, family, that, hey, this is part of what we can do together. And let's face it, some of the things that we talk about in some of the programs we use for future planning, we encourage grandparents to work with grandchildren or whatever. The techie folks, maybe some of the younger generation, it may be a great way for them to fully understand then what we're doing and how they can become a valued partner in our business. Hey, we're bringing family into the workforce, in a manner of speaking. It is important to note too that we need to be subtle, but we need to be engaging. So open-end questions are a big thing to get the responses. The whole please, like, comment, and share piece will spread the message as well. And it is then important to make certain that many folks that realize that many folks are on social media not to be sold something, but are there for value. And so the message we kick out needs to be important enough to them based on some of the data that we've mined or whatever it happens to be. So it is a, hey, there's a stroke every 30 seconds. Are you prepared for the ramifications thereafter? Be they be physical or financial. So some different things that can come into play that can be important to you. And as I mentioned before, some of the platforms will support hashtags, hyperlinks like Twitter. Some aren't as good at that, and it depends then as to how we're writing our message. Some of the tools that we're using to get responses, and we're able then to make it easy for people to reach out and say, hey, I got my hand up here. Chat with me, will you? Keeping the message consistent, that's something that is very important because it's interesting to note that the message you kick out there, it may be one that's a portion of the population that you're addressing has acknowledged it, responded, discarded it, whatever it happens to be, but there's always going to be a larger percentage that missed it. You can tell that if you're active on Facebook, where you'll see that, gee, that post from my cousin is 3 days old. How'd I miss that? Well, you have other things going through your feed. And so we want to make certain that we're consistent with what our message is as well. We might put a different shade of lipstick on them to appeal to people in different areas. You never know what the hot button's going to be either. But we do so in a fashion that, well, it tells the folks who we are and how we are reaching out to people and being consistent, and they can identify with you. And that goes back to that acronym guide that we had as well. And speaks to, hey, are we communicating in a fashion that they understand what we're doing? So it's important to note then that as a person has asked, what's the return on investment here? Well, it'll depend on your message, how tight the message is. A broader message, more people will respond to. And then how we can take those people that have responded and actually turn them into business. And that is part of the whole messaging process. And then how do you track it? You have the systems in place to make certain that, hey, this lead came in off of Facebook. They responded. It's a microwave type of decision. We closed the business within 2 days, back and forth with some information, and they then generated this much commission for me to give me an idea of, well, if we're not paying for the campaign, how do you determine that return on investment? Well, that might be as simple as the fact that your time's worth a whole bunch too. And so how do you calculate that? That's a little bit different than if you used a sponsored campaign and you're spending the dollars. And I know many folks will look at other more traditional ways of reaching out to people, like direct mail, and say, hey, I spent this much on mail, I got this many responses, but it translated into this much business. So this is a little bit different when it comes to establishing your return on investment, because some of that is developing your reputation and how that affects future campaigns as well, how they're going to respond to it. I mentioned that you don't have to come up with everything all by yourself. There are a number of viable folks that are out there creating data that you can use. If you guys are active in the life insurance world, Life Happens has some great programs that are out there, and many of them are free for your use. They do have a subscriber campaign as well, but it is something then that you can share their message and comment it on yourself and say, hey, if this is a concern to you, give me a call or drop me a line, whatever it happens to be. And that really can free up a bunch of your time with trying to be creative. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and helps you with being consistent in kicking out that information, because that same thing will also be part of the resources available through the folks you contract with, because they may have campaigns that can help you as well, information that you can use. And the same thing goes into some of the carrier information that's out there. Go to the folks you contract with because they got a ton of information out there. And then there are, of course, different pieces that they use that aren't exactly, hey, do business with me. I love a lot of the campaigns that Humana does in some of this area because it's the positivity that they put out that you can share where you don't have to reinvent that wheel and say, hey, I'm an encourager. Are you an encourager too? And it's all part of staying in front of folks. It's almost the old marketing concept of facings on a grocery store shelf where, boy, there's 14 rows of this kind of tuna. It must be pretty good versus the one that's got 3, whatever it happens to be. It's staying in front of folks and having that picture of you in words or in reality out there to help people. There are also some really cool things that you can do with humor that don't necessarily offend people. I have to be careful because I sometimes go, whoa, that slipped out. And I have an odd sense of humor. But folks will respond to these in a fashion that you wouldn't believe. You will get more people that will ask or respond to these and say, hey, that made my day. And if you can do some things with consistency here, you're creating that relationship as well. So even if they don't have a need at present, they're going to think of you because, hey, they can relate to you and you have established your presence in that community. Once again, I spoke of some of the folks that are out there with nonprofits that can kick out messages as well. But the carriers, I tell you, they are very good and becoming increasingly adept at not only handling their own social campaigns, but making that information available to you for your use. So one of the first things you do in the planning process is here. These are what the products I want to offer. These are the companies I work with. And of those companies, they offer me this type of support. So that can help with your whole charting out your calendar as to what do I talk about this week? How do I get my message out? How do I get people to respond? And you'll see that Facebook is an area, I keep going back to that, but that's an area where our target demographic in the Medicare world, that's where most of the people sit, plain and simple. You'll have some of the younger generation that goes, Facebook, that's for old folk. But it's a great way of getting our message out. We got to have that Facebook business or company page to utilize ads. Google. Many of you use it for your email. This is a great way to not only leverage that ability to communicate, but also your Google account gives you the opportunity to create a free blog. And blogs are a great way for you to disseminate information as well, a great way to establish your reputation as an expert in the area. And these also help with the search engine optimization. That's also very important, where we talked about if you build it, they will come. Now, if they don't know where it is, they don't. Cornfield in Iowa, got to figure out where the heck that is. The same way with your blog. And by utilizing different feeds into it, you are increasing that traffic in that fashion. Creating that blog is pretty simple. You pick the title. It's free through Google. You set up whatever the name may happen to be. You have an option to buy a domain, so the URL tracks to that as well. But you don't have to. You can utilize that same piece, and it's a great way for you to build your content. I use my so-called blog as a way of storing different pieces of information I run across that I haven't been able to read completely necessarily, but it's information I feel would be valuable to the audience I'm addressing. And so I've created a piece that says Medicare Agent News, and it has a ton of articles on it that give us information in the different areas. And it gleans from different sources, the carriers, the public, the government, all the different pieces that are out there. And of course, you can write your own opinions and put them on there. You got to be careful about involving politics and some of the pieces that are there, but it's a great way to disseminate information and tie it to you as a subject matter expert. So, setting that plan, setting up a checklist. Are we using the keywords that fit your business? Have you set up your profile on your personal and business pages that accurately reflect what you want to accomplish? Same thing through Google and LinkedIn accounts. And then, of course, find organizations that you work with, follow them, comment with them, and do an interaction so you can actually leverage perhaps some of the contacts that they have as well. Hey, check out some of our social media pieces that are out there. There are some things I look to do better in the future with some of them, but it's a great way for us to have information that we can use, and we don't have to stress about creating everything that comes about with it. Pardon me, we had a question that popped up. And yes, today's presentation is being recorded and will be made available to you. So we want to make certain that we're using the tools that are made available to us. We're doing posts that are relevant, pertinent, and personal, and making certain that they're out there. If you utilize just a singular account and you're mixing personal and business accounts, well, that's not all bad either, because it's having the public then become aware of who you are and how it is to do business with you. There are, of course, other campaigns or programs out there that can help you with designing your messages too. Canva does some really good things. They got a free account available to you, one that's not terribly expensive, and a pro account that gives you templates that you can fill in and utilize if you want a particular look, carving your image in a manner of speaking, where you can then replicate those messages on templates that are made available to you without cost. We're seeing this come across the board with all sorts of organizations. Did you notice that Medicare yesterday kicked out a new, more user-friendly website at Medicare.gov? It's a completely different look. When I pulled it up to look for pictures to make certain everything was current, I'm like, wow, am I on the right site? It's a different look. But it is something that illustrates the fact that it's not a static world out there. Things are subject to change. And we want to make certain that we stay abreast of the resources that we're utilizing as well too. And then, of course, there are complications that may become a part of our process because of what other people do. In our world, we're becoming subject to much more compliance outreach because of what some organizations have done on television with TV campaigns, commercials that are out there. It's translating into some different pieces that may require different types of electronic means for us to use to stay compliant as well, recording presentations, all those different pieces. Watch for that, because we had information coming to you from both NAHU and the carrier partners that we work with. But it's an illustration of how some things change the look. And do you have then the tools that can make it easy for you to adapt and do things electronically? That's why we are, well, one of the reasons why we're so proud of Medicare Center, outside of the fact that we're able to deliver this program to our contracted agents without cost, yeah, free, and it gives you access to those quoting engines and side-by-side comparisons and collection of all the neat things that you need to be compliant, utilize the CRM, and have resources in there for us to grow. It is a way for us to make certain that we're delivering upon the information that we've garnered through these different campaigns. Have we paid for something within a Facebook lead campaign? How are we doing some of those different pieces? And it goes through the entire process now. Electronics and the use of e-apps goes clear back to contracting. We make use of the insurance-based programs to help with facilitating the ease of contracting with multiple organizations. But we see that same sort of thing with the carriers themselves, where many of them have their own e-contracting pieces that can really speed things up, eliminates our handwriting challenges. It's also a way for us to more accurately track the folks that we do business with, or we hope to do business with, through the client management systems that are out there. There are some folks that still use tablets. There are some folks that still use Excel files. Works for you, power to you, but it may be much more efficient and less expensive in the long run when it comes to time by utilizing electronic systems. Once again, the applications that are there that come across deal not just with doing business, but the ways that we can use these types of applications to facilitate the selling process. In our final expense department, we have a program called Legacy Safeguard that gives people access to a system to set up the path to the inevitable, in a manner of speaking. I'm using it myself to make certain that folks realize that when I go, this is what I need or what I hoped that would happen after I'm gone. It gives us then a way of charting the process through, and that's very important for us. And it's all part of a don't put all your eggs in one basket, because they can all raise the ship. You know, the whole uh, tide raising multiple ships coming up analogy that I beat up all the time. So even if you do utilize social media, it's not an end all be all, obviously. One, there are a lot of variables out there that you don't really know how some things are going to respond until you have a lot of uh, experience with it. And you also want to make certain that you're utilizing some of the more traditional ways of doing things. The whole referrals thing, well, it can be tied into the electronic process too. So we want to make certain that we're diversifying our outreach. And that includes taking some of our other systems into a more modern age. Some agents have mailed newsletters to their clients on a regular basis. You can do the same thing electronically. And that gives us then the opportunity that as part of the sales process, we get that contact information for the people we're talking about to create our own database for people for outreach. And that gives us the way to stay in front of them, helps drive our persistency up, retains the clients, and gives us opportunities to sell without really selling. Kick that link out for the dental programs. Hey, you need a dental insurance? Click here and learn of different programs, and they can enroll themselves. So some different things you can do through linking microsites into this, or even into your signature line with your email. So it gives us the way of not only addressing questions, but coming up with new questions and seeing how that can influence the process moving forward. That say, in closing, why you want to do some of this stuff with us is the fact that we do have that electronic system to help you contract. We do have means of protecting yourself as well through discounted errors in admission for qualified agents. Qualified agent means you have a contract with us, but it covers a program you own. So you're not being added to a blanket policy for just one product and worrying about the rest. It's going to cover you, and you're more recognized outreach into the community because of some of your activities electronically. We do also have discounted continuing education through our association with WebCE to keep your license in play. You can add to your own benefit package through a modified guarantee issue program you write on yourself that you're paid a commission on. And we do have multiple programs, much like today, that's being recorded that are available to you on our website, as I mentioned, on premier.com, on our YouTube channel as well. And you'll see communications quite frequently come out from folks within our organization that detail this information too. I cannot overvalue Medicare Center. Free to you as a contracted agent, does a lot of the things that we've talked about here to make certain that when you have those leads, you can close them, you can follow up, you can multiply that lead from one opportunity to multiples simply by using tools that can make you more efficient and keep you compliant. Different companies too do offer different ranges of incentives. You know, the Medicare Advantage and PDP programs, max comp is set by the government, but these ancillary programs, life insurance, med sups, other types of insurance coverages, well, they aren't subject to those same restrictions. And so we have a page on our website that lays those all out for you. So you know what your full compensation is for your production. That may qualify you for carrier trips or incentive programs we offer ourselves as well. We also want to make certain that we have a means of getting you in front of people in addition to social media through the different programs that are out there to help you be effective. And that includes traditional mail co-op based on production through vetted lead vendors, and an opportunity to, much as what we talked about with, hey, you can buy leads off the internet. You can also buy leads specifically from direct mail through a partner that we have in that regard too. Non-touched, fresh, direct mail response. Revisit those internet leads that we offer through Facebook for final expense and Medicare. And of course, we do also offer a complimentary T65 locator, is what we call it. But it's a smart program you download to your smartphone, you register on it, they verify, they being the almighty wizard behind the curtain, that you have contracts with us, and it lays out where people are in a particular geographic area. That can help you if you're a door knocker for certain programs where that's a compliant activity, or different things that give you an idea of, hey, this is a great area for me to market with all types of campaigns based just on where people live. We do all this because we want your business. We do webinars because it's an electronic means of reaching out to multiple individuals at the same time as well. It's something to consider for you in your business with the folks you hope to work with as well. A great way to set up different topics. They don't necessarily have to be sales related. We got different presentations out there that can help you in that regard too, across the board with multiple products. So it's all part of your mindset. If this is something you need to do, well, you can put it in play really quickly. You don't have to wait for stuff. It's a microwave type of component. You can get her going. It's something then that as you put it in your mind, this is something you want to do, it's pretty easy to implement and get going pretty quickly. So all that said and done, I'm going to check really quickly to make certain that we have all questions covered. And we do. But you can reach out to us, 1-800-365-8208, and discuss the possibilities you have in this and other areas. You can visit our website to find out additional details. You can speak with your contact within our organization, your agent success manager, your marketer, to talk about ways of going beyond some of the more traditional ways of reaching out to people that you may have done in the past. If you've done some of these things too, electronically, what are some of the different resources that are out there that can make that even more effective for you? And we want to make certain that we have all that available to you, and that depends upon communication between you and us. That said, I want to thank you for the time that you invested with me today. I want to thank you folks that have done business with Premier Marketing in the past for that business and the opportunity to continue doing so. I also want to thank those folks that are now considering doing business with you. We look forward to that opportunity. And until we're able to visit again, I wish you good selling, face to face or virtually. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.